Hey there, guys. All right, today we are back with some more of the Great War, and we are on to week 170, the Battle of La Malmaison. That's what I think of your language, France. Breakthrough at Caporetto. La Malmaison. La Malmaison. Ho ho ho. Big it. Gonna piss someone off, I just know it. Anyways, before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love if you joined the Discord and followed me over at Twitch. Yeah, Discord and Twitch. Go check them out. Discord isn't active. Not my fault. Y'all wanted the Discord. So I just made it for y'all. Y'all wanted active. Y'all gotta talk. Not me. Not my thing. Anyways, let's go ahead and dive right in.
There have been 11 battles of the Isonzo River, all launched offensively by the Italians, but that changes this week. This week, a 12th battle begins, launched by the Central
Wait, what?
Powers, and this week, the Italian front breaks.
Fucking plot twist. Y'all didn't tell me that the 12th battle was actually not done by Luigi Cadorna, the dumbass of Italy, the dumbass of Europe, quite frankly. Wow. What? Damn. Was not expecting a plot twist in 1917, but here we are.
I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to the Great War. Last week, the Germans continued Operation Albion, a combined air-land-sea offensive in the Gulf of Riga, while in the west, casualties for the 2.5 months of the ongoing Battle of Passchendaele were finally being tallied, and they were enormous. Plans were made to continue that battle when the weather improved, and plans were also made for a tank attack that would be the first of its kind. Action now began again on the Western Front this week, and it was begun by the French. In fact, they scored a big victory at the Battle of La Malmaison, which ran from the 23rd to the 26th. The French captured the village and the fort of La Malmaison and took control of the Chemin des Dames Ridge. This was a well-prepared, limited-scale attack, much like the Second Battle of Verdun 6 weeks ago. And it was partly designed to boost French morale after the disastrous spring offensive and the general mutiny of the summer. German artillery was outnumbered 3-1, and the French guns silenced the German ones. Also, the French saturated the Islet Valley with gas, so the Germans could not bring forward supplies or evacuate the wounded. The preliminary bombardment had been 6 days long, and French aerial recon had identified the German infantry shelters, which were systematically destroyed. When the French infantry went over the top, still in darkness on the morning of the 23rd, there were 63 Schneider CA-1 and Saint-Chamond tanks with them. 27 of these got bogged down behind French lines in the mud. 15 more were stopped in no man's land or at the German front lines. But the other 21 reached the German second line.
Out of, what was that, 60 tanks, 21 made it through all the way. God damn, tanks really get better in just a short amount of time. A lot like planes. Is what we go from flying the first plane in like what 1910ish around there, maybe 1908. I can't remember. And then 40 years later, we've got jets. Like, that's freaking crazy.
According to plan. In 4 days, the French advanced nearly 10 kilometers, and the success here and recently at Verdun, as well as the Allied September successes at Passchendaele, showed that with proper planning and artillery preparation, the German defenses were vulnerable as they had not been earlier in the year. Casualty estimates varied, sometimes widely, but William Philpott estimated a few years ago 38,000 German casualties and 12,000 prisoners against just 14,000 French casualties.
Damn.
Even after the spring offensives and the general mutiny, there is no way you could count out the French army. Elsewhere on that front, though, the Germans were holding their ground. On the last day of the week, the 26th, the Passchendaele offensive against them began again. The Canadians under Sir Arthur Currie were chosen to lead the attack, but Currie had serious reservations. Still, he made his plans. It would be a 3-phased attack, and the codenamed objectives were, in order, the red, blue, and green lines. The 3rd and 4th Divisions of Canadian Corps would take the first two, and the 1st and 2nd would take the last and do any mopping up. The attacks would take place the 26th and 30th of October and November 6th. This caused issues with General Hugh Gough, who planned an attack with his 5th Army the 22nd, and he wanted Currie to attack the same day. Currie refused to be rushed. Still, his attack the 26th caused equally heavy casualties on both sides. Currie's men were brought to a halt before they could reach Passchendaele Ridge, or what rubble remained of the village. They did not completely take even the Red Line, the nearest objective, but they did secure jumping off positions for next week's attack. But if the Germans were holding their ground there, they were advancing in the east. Operation Albion continued, and on the 20th, Dago and Schilden Islands were captured. The next day, the Germans land on the Russian mainland at Werder. In 9 days, they have taken 20,000 prisoners and 100 guns. But that operation was just a side note to the big advance this week in Italy.
Dun, dun,
Now,
dun.
the 10th and 11th battles of the Isonzo River this summer had cost the Italians nearly 300,000 casualties, and the Austrians a couple 100,000, and both sides were begging their allies for help. Italian Army Chief of Staff Luigi Cadorna.
Okay, here's the thing. Austria-Hungary, you've begged the Germans for help since the beginning of the war. Pull your own weight, please.
Thought
Like,
the
Jesus
impending collapse
Christ.
of Russia was going to free up Austria-Hungary to send all its armies against Italy. But the British and French only helped him with artillery. He also kind of ruled by fear at this point, and he was so certain his strategies were right that he didn't even listen to alternative opinions from his own intelligence services. By this time, he had fired 217 generals and 255 colonels, mostly
Jesus.
for lack of offensive spirit. So standards were pretty low in the officer corps by this time.
I mean, standards were already low if Luigi Cadorna could be a general. Like, come on.
Austrian Emperor Karl,
Like, I didn't know it could get any lower than that. Oh, damn, Karl died young. 1887 to 1922? He was, hold on, 97, 07, 17. He was 35. What killed him? Was he murdered? Assassinated?
who was told by his general staff that his army could not handle another Italian assault, asked German Quartermaster General Erich Ludendorff for German aid. Ludendorff said no. Karl went right to the Kaiser, who intervened. A German general sent to the
I'll talk to Mother. I'll talk to Mother Kaiser.
Italian front reported that the Austrian army was at the end of its rope. So Ludendorff created the German 14th Army with bits and pieces taken from the Baltic, Romania, and Alsace-Lorraine. He sent it to the Italian front under General Otto von Bello with orders just to stabilize the Austrians with the most limited campaign he could manage. Ludendorff wanted his divisions back by December to prepare for the 1918 campaign against France. The operation was codenamed Waffentreue, which I will very freely and loosely translate as Brothers in Arms, though it's really loyalty to arms, but it sounds better, Brothers in Arms. This army included some of the best Alpine divisions the Germans and Austrians had, and would also be featuring new infiltration tactics, or Hutier tactics, named after General Oskar von Hutier. They would proceed in 4 phases. 1. Short artillery barrage of high explosive and poison gas shells. No preliminary sighting shots would be fired, since the guns would be aimed mathematically with help from aerial recon. This barrage was not to destroy the enemy front lines, but to neutralize them. 2. Under a creeping barrage, shock troops would move forward and infiltrate identified weak spots in the defenses, avoiding all combat if possible, and continuing until they reached enemy artillery or command posts, which they would then destroy or capture. 3. Then, machine gun and mortar units would launch heavy attacks on narrow fronts against enemy strongpoints that had been avoided by the shock troops. Artillery was now brought forward. 4. The regular infantry was sent in to mop up any resistance that remained. On October 24th, 33 German and Austrian divisions attacked 41 Italian ones. This was the Battle of Caporetto, named after one of the villages where the fighting took place that is known as Kobarid to the Slovenians there. It was the 12th Battle of the Isonzo, but it was the first that was planned and executed by the Central Powers. It began with 4 hours of artillery, 2 hours of which were gas shells. The main attack then began as a pincer movement. The northern arm attacked from the Bovec Basin along the river to the southwest towards Caporetto on the slopes and ridges. The southern arm attacked from Tolmin and the bridgehead there to the west. Once Caporetto fell, Austrian General Svetozar Boroyevich von Boyna would attack to hold the forces on the Bayansitsa Plateau and the Carso, while the 14th Army moved south from the newly conquered ridges. That day, the attack, in the thick fog, on a 32-kilometer front, broke through at Tolmin and Caporetto, taking 10,000 prisoners, and the Italians fell back as far as 20 kilometers just that day. By the 26th, the Central Powers claimed...
I like how the first time that the Central Powers do their own Isonzo River attack, they succeed. Because they did some proper planning and didn't just charge forward like Luigi Dumbass Cadorna.
60,000 prisoners and 500 guns, and the Italians were in full flight along the whole front. Now, von Bello wanted the mountains cleared of Italian soldiers and artillery to provide safe access to the Venetian plain. He sent in his elite Alpine troops, which included the Königlich Württembergisches Gebirgsbataillon, which featured one Lieutenant Erwin Rommel. Rommel was given 3 mountain companies and 1 machine gun company, the Rommel Detachment. On the 25th, they took 2 mountain peaks and 3,600 prisoners. The next day, he then took Monte Matajur. In 52 hours of fighting, his men had captured 150 officers and 9,000 men, and had only had 6
Goes from mountain boy to tank boy in 20 years.
of their own killed and 30 wounded. Even decades later, as a famous general in another large conflict, Rommel called this the high point of his career. By the end of the week, all of the battlefields Italy had dominated for the past 2 years, at the cost of so many lives, were falling behind or would soon do so. Gorizia, Monte San Michele, Monte Sabatino, Podgora. The defeat even caused the fall of Paolo Boselli's government in Rome. It had become a complete and total rout. Von Bello's commanders wanted to head south, win total victory over the Italians, and knock them out of the war. But von Bello had no intention of being an occupying army. He still intended to get his forces to the Western Front by December. And the
I mean, you can still get them to the Western Front through Italy.
week ends with Germany making huge advances in Italy, a smaller advance in the northeast, holding their ground in Belgium, but losing it in France. And a final note, on the 26th, Brazil declares war on Germany.
Let's go,
Think how it
Brazil.
would feel in the Italian army this week. You'd sacrificed men in the hundreds of thousands to slowly take enemy territory over 2.5 years. You bleed out a whole generation of your young men, and suddenly you lose it all in a week, a few days. What was the sacrifice for then? What do you tell the people at home, the families of the dead? I don't know. If you'd like to know more about...
And that was the Battle of La Malmaison. Breakthrough at Caporetto. The Great War Week 170. This was a good week. I mean, it's nice to see Luigi Cadorna getting his ass beat. Really, honestly, that's what made this week so good. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.